The Dead Pair Podcast is brought to you by Kolar Arms, America's competition shotgun, and is fueled by Fiocchi.
Welcome to the Dead Pair Podcast, coming in hot with everything you want to hear about sporting clays. With your hosts, Jason Rambo.
This is what I have to work with, everyone.
And Sean Alley.
Like I said, I was just thirsty.
Oh, boy.
Often imitated, but never duplicated. It's the Dead Pair Podcast. It's showtime.
Welcome back, everyone, and welcome back, Mr. Ben McAnally. What's up, Ben?
Not a lot, just burning up the highway. Appreciate you having me on. It's funny that we're going to talk a little bit of hunting instead of sporting clays. Everybody sees my hunting pictures and they assume that all I do is shoot and hunt. And it's like that duck, right? He looks calm on the surface, but he's going nuts. So yeah, I'm in the middle of Texas right now. I got a Starlink on the roof of my truck and my dog in the front seat. So heck yeah, let's have some fun on the Dead Pair.
You sound like a David Radulovich commercial. I'm in the middle of nowhere and I got a Starlink on my roof. And
yeah. Okay. So yes, I think David and I are both medicated for similar objectives. I found out how to make mine profitable. He found how to weaponize his.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, that's hilarious. We're not talking all hunting tonight. I mean, there is obviously some sporting clays in this. This is a sporting clay podcast, but
absolutely,
the story that we're going to get into tonight, I actually spent some time with our guest. His name is Aziz Hain. I actually spent some time on the phone with him, and wow, what an interesting story. And I cannot wait to share this with everyone. We're going to get him on the phone here in just a minute. I do want to give credit to Dr. Grace Sturdivant of Otopro Technologies. This was a client that became a friend of hers, and she told me about his story, and I'm like, I got to talk to this guy. Real quick, Ben, speaking of sporting clays, how was the World English for you?
English was fantastic. Big shout out to the crew at NSC. The fact that they moved the courses around, and that the main event was not just the same old,
Yeah.
I think that's something that always comes up at San Antonio. Oh, is it not just the same old thing? Well, no, they try to move it around and spice it up and, rotate. So 10 out of 10, I shot extremely mediocre, as is, that's just what happens. You reap the rewards of the 0 practice targets that I shot in the last 12 months. So high five to me.
This is why I love having you on the show, because you and I are on the same page when it comes to that. We both are ate up and obsessed with shooting, and it seems like we get 0 practice between tournaments, right? And then we go there with some kind of wild expectation that we know is not going to come to fruition.
Oh, I went for the people. I wanted to see my favorite people. I wanted to connect with my favorite vendors. I wanted to stand on the white pipe fence at the stadium and give the what's up nod to all of my buddies that are afflicted with this at such a level that they have to wear a red, white, and blue vest. So
yeah. It's interesting you were talking about the course, and I don't want to dwell on this. We need to get going on.
No, go ahead.
I was talking to both Scott Manspeaker from Atlas Traps and Neil Chadwick, and they were telling me how they changed everything up, and they got a lot of compliments. Both of them were telling me on what they've done there. It like you said, it's not just the same old road and the same old courses like we expect for the Nationals. So they did a really good job of mixing things up. And, hey, hats off to Scott Manspeaker and Atlas Traps, because that was huge for them to be there and be involved with the World English. So, but,
Yep. Scott was on 5 Stand Sunday, passing out some Atlas hats and shaking some hands. So 10 out of 10 to those guys. You and I are both a little biased, but Manspeaker for president.
Oh, boy. That's the last thing he needs to hear. I hope he does not listen to this episode. But hey, Ben, going back to our guest tonight, there is a big correlation between hunting and sporting clays. I mean, that's how sporting clays was founded, right? It was to simulate game hunting. And there is a lot of crossover. I mean, just about everybody that's into sporting clays hunts something, whether it's birds or big exotic hunts like you, or no matter what it is, there is a massive correlation there. Do you agree?
you mentioned hunting, and I instantly go to the guys that I look up to, right? Like the Fred Finizis and the Mike Deandas, and bless his heart, even Zach is, Zach's pictures make a duck pit look appealing. But whether you get to go dove hunting once a year, or like you and Corey and everybody did with Cole and them, you get to go on a off-season exotic hunt.
Yeah.
Getting outside is what it's all about, and it's hard. When I got into it, I was just feeling around in the dark, right? Like I got lucky, and then I exploited my luck network from there. So
Yeah.
this sounds like a way that you don't have to take quite as many gambles as I did.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Well, hey, listen, I do want to get to our guest. Real quick shout out. Thank you very much to Kolar Arms, Fiocchi USA, Rhino Chokes, Atlas Traps, RE Ranger, Gun and Trophy Insurance, Long Range, Score Chaser, Odo Pro Technologies, Bear Pallet, Taconic Distilleries, El Jefe Energy, Midway USA Foundation, and J-Tech Communications and Slick Products. Thank you to those folks that keep bringing us these wonderful guests and our co-host, Mr. Ben McAnally. So, Ben, if you would, hang on real quick. I'm going to get Aziz on the phone.
The Dead Pair.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very excited about this. Mr. Aziz Hain, how are you, Aziz?
I'm doing great, Jason. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Now, this is a very exciting, this might be the feel-good story of the year on this podcast. Aziz, you were not raised in the tradition that most of our listeners were. Could you please give us a glimpse of your upbringing before firearms?
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely had a non-traditional upbringing in that regard. I grew up in a family of vegetarians who was a vegetarian until much later in life. And also, as you might expect with that background, no shooters. I think the only person I knew who owned or shot a gun was my Vietnam vet neighbor as a kid.
Wow. And you were telling me that, and I'm going to use your words, that, you had, liberal parents were kind of hippie, and you actually were raised Muslim. Is that correct?
That's exactly right. They were hippies. You might still, to some extent, describe them that way. They raised me sort of in a mix of faith traditions. So a little bit of Buddhism, Hinduism, Islam in there, and then when I got a little bit older, I wound up going to a Christian school. Actually, not a very Christian school, a Quaker one, but I sort of had a mix of all of it in there.
Okay. So what happened to make you actually try shooting, or even give a thought of hunting, or to try meat? I mean, can you tell us what happened? Can you tell us how this transition began?
Sure. And I think I joke now that it must be in my blood, just not that close. My last name means gamekeeper in the old tongue.
Okay.
And I was, my parents would tell you, I was obsessed with guns as a kid. So every stick, every Lego, everything I touched was a gun as a kid. And that kind of came back later, obviously. I would say that aside from kind of maybe that early time, it really changed for me when I stopped being a vegetarian and became a meat eater.
Okay. So that was kind of like what got the ball rolling that direction then.
Yeah, that's exactly right. When I was making that transition, I think I first tried meat when I was in college, and that wound up being a morally difficult thing for me. When I grew up, my parents were vegetarian for moral reasons. And so that was when you don't eat meat for like 18, 20 years, whatever it was, it's just making that initial choice and then going further into it was not the easiest thing. And I think I first got into trying meat just to try not to be different from everybody else. I mean, I grew up very differently from everyone else that I knew outside of the kind of religious community I was in. For those who aren't as old as I am, being vegetarian wasn't that normal in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah.
And, so I think initially I was just trying to be more normal, quote unquote. And then fast forward, after kind of being a dedicated meat eater by then with kids and everything else, in the 2000s with frankly the podcast revolution, I remember listening to a podcast with Joe Rogan and Steve Rinella talking about Meat Eater and the idea of hunting for food procurement really piqued my interest. And I think that was probably where the transition for me happened, between connecting the dots between becoming a carnivore, wrestling with this moral question, and then seeing this potential answer to that conundrum I found myself in.
Okay. So let me ask this. As you started getting into hunting and shooting firearms, did you ever stop and think, how was this ever wrong? Why was there a mindset of firearms and hunting is bad?
Yeah, I mean, that's where I find myself every day, right? I mean, if you go, so many of my friends are now hunters and shooters, and they're the most law-abiding people. I love to ask this question, if I get in this kind of debate of like, talk to someone who's maybe not necessarily comfortable on guns, and you go, are you uncomfortable with me? Because there's nothing about my life that would lead you to believe there's any danger here at all, I think.
Right.
And then hunting, I think similarly, right? Most of anyone, frankly, who eats meat, I think you have to be okay with hunting. It doesn't really change the moral calculus whether you have someone else do the procurement of meat for you or you do it yourself. Frankly, I think it's more honorable to go get it yourself. You know where it came from. Free range protein that has had the best life it possibly could have had right up until the moment that you take it cleanly. So, yeah, I think most of that in my mind comes from ignorance more than anything else.
Yeah.
Ben McAnally here. Question. You self-described as being a firearms enthusiast early on. What specifically, what kind? Like, was it the tactical stuff that caught your eye in the movies, or did you see like a Beretta Gallery catalog and think, oh my gosh, I want tweeds and side locks? Like, where does your mind go? What were you interested in?
I think early it was the kind of stuff that lots of little boys do, right? Playing Army or playing Cowboys and Indians or whatever it is, right? Thinking back, I don't think I had any particular genre that was more interesting than anything else. I do remember getting the Cabela's catalog and going through it and looking at everything they had and being interested, and that's still true today. I think as I've gotten older, I've definitely transitioned much more to the hunting and sporting aspect draws me much more than tactical does. Not to say I'm not interested in those two, because I am, but it's really the sporting and hunting firearms that are of most interest at this point.
Okay. Well, and this is a question, and I think Ben will level with me on this one, and I'm genuinely interested because I grew up with firearms, right? Like that was just a mainstay in our house. So given the way that you were raised and then becoming an avid owner and user of firearms, can you tell us what some of the major misconceptions are that people have of firearms? Because to me, it's, like I said, it's second nature, right? Like I was raised that way. Ben was raised that way. And so when I see people have this negative thought process, can you tell me what that's like and where that comes from? Like what are some of the major misconceptions that people have about firearms?
That's a really good question, Jason. I mean, there's so many of them, but I think at core is just not understanding the culture in which they reside, right? I get people being anti-violence. I'm sure all of us law-abiding gun owners are anti-violence in the same way.
Yeah.
But I mean, just the nature of this podcast, right? There's thousands of people, probably hundreds of thousands of people who engage in sport using firearms all the time in a completely safe manner where no one gets hurt, nothing gets hurt, a clay bird or a steel target or something, and have great entertainment. That's not to say that's the only use of guns. Obviously, I support fully the Second Amendment across the board, but I do think a big misconception there is just that people are out to kill something, and that's just not true.
Yeah, and that's a good point you just raised right there, and I've actually got something for you on it here in just a second. But from our previous conversation, you were telling me that you learned about conservation hunting as you started to get into this, which is awesome, right? Like that's the best way to learn. Kind of walk us through that process as you started to, hey, I want to go hunt for my own food.
Yeah, Jason, I think that's a really good point. Lots of folks who are not necessarily pro hunting would view themselves as pro conservation, and hunting is one of the chief ways that we conserve the nature around us, not just the animals themselves, but habitat, right? If you talk to any one of the major, and I promise I'll get back to your question, but if you talk to any one of the conservation orgs, whether it's Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, Pheasants Forever, Wild Turkey, et cetera, the list goes on to you.
Yeah.
They're all going to say habitat preservation is probably the number one thing they have to do.
Yeah.
to make sure that we have huntable game into the future. And I really began to learn about that and the wonderful history we have in the United States from that journey, whether that was listening to Meat Eater or to Hunt Talk Radio. There's so many good ones now. I'm definitely not doing it justice, but the tradition we have in the United States is incredible. If you look back to the days of Teddy Roosevelt and having most big game species almost gone from the continent to what we have today is just an incredible success story, driven almost entirely by the wish to hunt and have wild game
Yeah.
as a food source and an activity for Americans.
Well, and this is where I'm going to bring Ben into this conversation, because all the research and studying I've done on it, and I don't mean to go too deep into the woods. I know this is a Sporting Clay podcast, but all the research that I've done on it, the reason why we have such strong game population is because of conservative hunting. Because in the wild, they won't sustain on their own and grow to the populations that they are now. Ben, I'm going to bring you into this because you travel all around the world, and I know you're a big horn hunter, but in all your travels, I'm sure you've experienced, like, there's certain conservation that you go by when you go out to harvest an animal. It's not like, oh, there's one, stick it, right?
Absolutely. I think that, and this kind of ties into maybe where we're going, having a good quality relationship with your guide or your outfitter, knowing that they've done their due diligence, knowing that they're on the right side of, local laws and customs. It's in the same way Jason, you and I have used sporting clays as an amazing excuse to visit some beautiful venues. I use hunting
Yeah.
as a reason to get, collect a bunch of stamps in the back of that passport, right? And I
Right.
love what Aziz said, and any of my close friends, shout out to a couple of them that watch me do it all spring. You go to all the shows, right? Dallas Safari Club, Safari Club International, the Wild Sheep Foundation, which is probably closest to my heart. And all they talk about is conservation and education. Do animals get
Yeah.
harvested? Yeah. Does everybody want to show you the ram they got or the elk or the whatever it is? Absolutely. But when you lead with education and conservation, it I know we've got an attorney on the line, but it's one of those places where you start to get yourself into like this logical corner where some of the things you say are just flat out irrefutable, even if for some reason in their heart, not in their brain, but in their heart, they want to disagree with you. All of a sudden they find out that they can't, and that, we humans are here on this planet for reasons. Uh,
Yeah.
I don't know. Is that the most agnostic way to say that?
No, but that was well said, though, Ben.
Yeah.
I mean, really,
And I
believe so.
always lead. And when people are like, oh man, collecting the guns or collecting the trophies or whatever, I'm like, it's to meet people, it's to go places, it's to do things, and it's to celebrate.
Yeah.
It's to celebrate nature. Purposely, most of the trophies that I have in my house, I couldn't tell you what they score. I can tell you how old they were, and I can tell you the story of where we went and how great the guide was or how fun my experience was. But it's not a.
Yeah.
I'm not hunting inches. I'm hunting some once in a lifetime memories. So anyway, there you go.
Oh, yeah. No, that's very well said, and I'm sure you can level with that, Aziz.
Yeah, can I riff on that for a second?
Yeah,
Ben, I
please.
think that was 100% right. I'm the same way. I think the way you framed it of hunting experiences and memories is definitely right. I do want to talk about this for a second though, because I think it's a huge misconception. I got into hunting because of food and that angle, and it still is a major driver. But lots of people have this, I think, uninformed view that quote unquote trophy hunting is a problem. And I think one thing that changed my view on that was understanding the relationship between quote unquote trophy hunting and conservation. Back before we had the system that we had today, almost all the game in the United States, the deer, the elk, we know about the bison, et cetera, was taken away before we put in the regulations to protect it. And the
Yeah.
same thing was happening in Africa. They have a different system than we do, but it is giving value to those animals through whether it's hunting or going on safari to view them, that has protected them from a lot of poaching. There
Yeah.
will be very many fewer animals all over the world if it weren't for hunting to make them have a value to people keeping them on the landscape.
Yeah.
Aziz, are you familiar with black buck antelope and the relationship between black buck antelope in Texas and black buck antelope in their native land, kind of South Central, Southeast Asia?
No, I'm familiar with the black buck. I'm not familiar with the story. I would love to hear. I am familiar with, I think, the same with oryx, right? In Texas.
Yeah. Well, and because they're valued, because people, you know, because people want to raise them, conserve them, et cetera. There are now more black buck in the state of Texas than there are in the entire sub-Asian continent. Like their natural range, a lot of northern India, some of the countries that end in stan, just for people who aren't geography experts. But yeah, why? Because, and some of my friends will laugh, but because we put a value on it, right? Price is only an issue in the absence of value. And look at us. We value our wildlife resources, therefore we have them. Whereas there are places on this planet that are just devoid of wildlife. And in my opinion, that's the crime.
Yeah.
I think that's true. And then your example is great because it's not a legal requirement, right? Nothing about US or Texas law would require those landowners to maintain those black buck. And I saw the same thing in action with a guide when I went aoudad hunting in West Texas with my oldest son. They have strict quote unquote tag limits, even though, under the law, there are no tag limits. You can shoot as many aoudad as you want because they're non-native.
Yeah. Non-game species. Yeah.
Well, I want to get a little bit back to your story, Aziz. So what was it like for you to harvest your first animal?
Yeah, I was just thinking about that the other day after we talked the first time, Jason. It was a little tough. I'm not going to lie. I think other than maybe a fish going fishing, I'd never killed anything. And shooting an animal is it's not something you should take lightly. I don't think.
No.
And that first time was more emotional than maybe I thought it was going to be. I think over time that lessens, but the gravity of what you're doing doesn't leave and shouldn't. I don't think. I think it's probably not a good sign if you become too callous about it. But yeah, the first experience was surprisingly emotional once I had an animal on the ground. I think what really converted after that for me though was the process of turning that animal into food. Taking putting the taking of life into context of kind of, to be a little cheesy for a moment, the circle of life that we all have to eat something and the animal's going to die either way. Kind of closing that loop made me feel a whole lot better about the experience.
Well, and that's perfect because that leads them into my next kind of question / statement here is, I think therein lies another big misconception. You're not hunting to kill. You are harvesting an animal. And anyone that needs clarification needs to listen to an episode of either Meat Eater or watch an episode of Spirit of the Wild with Ted Nugent, right? Because there's a massive difference between going out and killing something and going out and harvesting something. And you are harvesting an animal. And look, we joke around. I mean, we've had guys like Kevin DeMike on here. Oh, I'm a killer, blah, blah, blah. But I guarantee that man's not going to take anything that he doesn't take back to the truck with him. Right? Like, so there's a massive difference there. And I think that's where a lot of the misconceptions come in, with hunting.
Agreed. And I think it's on two levels, right? One of them is sort of ethical and moral, and you should take it and eat it. I'll come back to that in a second. And the other is legal. I'm not really aware of anywhere where you can just shoot something and not attempt to recover it.
Right.
And you're right. I think the other thing is the other misconception is because people don't have the same exposure to wild game. I certainly didn't when I got started. There's this conception that the meat's not going to be any good, that it's going to be gamey, that it's not going to be something you actually want to eat. And that just couldn't be further from the truth.
Yeah.
My experience has been that the meat is just as good as any store-bought meat and typically better.
Yeah.
And it's better for you because the animal was living wild on the landscape right up until the moment that it died cleanly and as painlessly as we can make it.
Well, and you guys were talking about black bucks earlier. I grew up in Ohio, and venison was a part of life there, right? And I love venison. I really do. And the taste is nothing like anything you buy in the store. And then I harvested my black buck in Texas this past year, and everybody down there was telling me, if you like venison, you wait till you try this. And I'm like, yeah, I've heard all this. They weren't lying. I mean, the taste is, it's, I don't think you can go into the finest steakhouse in this country and have a steak as good as that was. I mean, it was incredible. And listen, this is Sporting Clay podcast again. I'm not trying to be an advocate for this, but it's important that people understand this stuff. It's not just about, like Ben said, trophy hunting, right? There's more to it than that.
100%. And, actually, Jason, when you talk about going to Texas and getting the food aspect, my most recent hunting trip was a nilgai hunting trip. And the reason I took it was because my son and I hunted together in South Texas, and the ranch served us chicken fried nilgai. And it was good enough that I wanted to go back and get some for myself. So now I've got 200 pounds of nilgai in my freezer in the basement.
That's awesome.
And to tie it back to your podcast subject for a second, right?
Yeah.
These sporting clays disciplines, which are so fun, exist because they mirror the hunting experience, right? Like the various games largely mirror the hunting that they grew out of.
Well, and that's how sporting clays was derived, was a way to practice. It was supposed to simulate game hunting, and it was a way for people to practice. And that's what I was going to ask you is, you eventually started shooting clay targets. Was that just a way to practice your shooting skills, or was it recreation, or was it both?
Yeah, but I would say those two plus engaging my kids in it. So we've had a great, I mean, for one, I just think shooting clays is a blast. It's super fun. I like every clay shooting discipline I've encountered so far. I probably like sporting clays and skeet a little more than trap, but all of them are great fun. And, when you're going to go on a hunting trip, I think it's incumbent on us to practice our craft so that you make a clean harvest. And at the same time, you can get out there at the club with your kids, and when they're too young to hold a gun, they can operate the thrower for you. They can hang out with the salty old guys at the club. And then as they get bigger and strong enough to have a gun, then they can do it with you. You wind up with a great family activity on top of your practice.
Yeah.
Yeah, you said salty. Well, you said salty and old, so I know you've been to some trap clubs. So now that we've so to bring this full circle, this life change made in your 20s and this newfound passion and stuff, you've figured out how to make it a thing that's bigger than yourself, bigger than your family. Tell us a little bit about what you've launched and what kind of benefits you bring to like-minded folks.
Yes. So I mentioned an audit trip. I went with my oldest son to hunt an audit in West Texas, and it was great. But as I was coming home, I was reflecting on the process to go get there, and I felt like, man, everything about this is just too hard, right? Researching a guide was difficult. You do web searches, and the best ratings and reviews you can find are like people fighting on a forum on the internet, which typically doesn't tell you anything. And then once you select a guide, hopefully you have some information to go on. You talk to them a couple times on the phone, and then you're sending them a big check, maybe 6 months, a year in advance of when you're going. And I'll say every guide and outfitter I've worked with has been, honorable and great. I've never been scammed, but it does feel strange sending a check to a stranger in another state a year before you go. So I got home and I thought to myself, boy, the internet really should have fixed this. Like, what is going on here? There should be a better way to do this. And I looked around and I found there's some people doing parts of what I would have wanted as a consumer out there, but nothing that put it together the way I wanted. And so maybe I had a little bit of a rush of blood to the head and decided I'm gonna build it myself. I'm gonna build the platform that I wish would have existed before I booked my trip. And so I set about to try and do that. We launched a website called Finder. The name's in retrospect maybe harder than it should be, but it's PH is a little bit of a nod to African outfitters. They call them professional hunters. So it's PHINDYR.com, finder.com. It's a marketplace, a curated marketplace where we bring on guides and outfitters to offer guided hunting adventures. And that customers can go on and peruse all the trips, compare, do research, get ratings and reviews, and then check out like you would or similar to the way you would on normal e-com. So We're using Stripe for payments, one of the largest payment processors in the world, secure, et cetera. And but I harp on this because it irritated me so much. Every guided trip I've taken, I've been the person organizing the trip. And understandably, the guide always wants you, the hunter, to organize your friends paying. And I hate chasing my friends for money. So we made sure to build in a feature where you can easily split a bill between your friends and send them payment links and let the website remind them to pay so you don't have to.
That is cool. That is very cool. And you kind of did this. I guess we didn't talk about this from the very beginning. You're actually an attorney, is your profession.
Yeah, correct. I spent about 15 years working for a law firm, made partner there, and then got a job offer I couldn't turn down to go in-house to work for a company. So I did that, which I've been doing for the last 10 years, still as an attorney, but other functions as well. And then as a side gig, decided I was going to launch another business. So I don't know how wise that was, but we've done it.
Well, Ben, you've been through the site. It's incredible what he's offering there.
Yeah, it's really cool. Been there, done that. It doesn't matter if you're wiring somebody, 4 figures or 6 figures worth of money. Like, you always take a deep breath right before you hit send, because
Yeah.
I'll tease. I'll pick on some of the West Texas waterfowl guys, right? Like, that's our backyard worth of hunting. Well, every one of them's a excuse me. The outfitters are great. All of their guides are junior high baseball flunkouts, right? Or junior college baseball flunkouts. Now, I'm just picking. There's some really good career outfitters and guides, but I'd be lying if I said I hadn't been with a few people that I was, that I took deep breaths, and maybe they said load the gun, and I just went ahead and left them in the magazine. Like, nah, I'll be fine.
I'll be fine.
Yeah, but the process that you've gone through, right? With where did I read? It might have been in mine and Jason's show notes. Like, there are so many ways to find a professional, and in this world, like professional services, like mine on the investment side, yours on the legal side, accountants. But how the heck do you find a guide or an outfitter that is, because they all look great at the Safari Club show in Nashville, but who can actually follow through, and who's selling you a picture from 2007 because that's the last time they saw one of those deer,
Yeah.
Yeah, and actually, I'm glad, Ben, you mentioned the shows, because that was another thing that kind of drove home for me the need for a product like this. So after, when I started trying to build this, I went to the Great American Outdoor Show, a little closer to me in Harrisburg than Dallas Safari Club or Safari Club International. And just the fact that you have guides from literally outfitters from all over the world coming there, and then people from all over the US and beyond, to meet them in person, tells you the way that we find outfitters isn't that efficient as it could be, right? I mean,
Yeah.
the amount of time and effort spent just to go to a place to meet someone tells you there's a problem in that market that I wanted to fix.
Yeah. And that's, that was the first thing that struck me, because fortunately, I went on an amazing hunt this past January, and I'll be honest with you, and Ben, you know where I'm talking about. Where this ranch is, it is 3 hours from anything to do with civilization. And if I decided I was going to go on a hunt like this, there's no way in hell I would have found this place, right? And now you've streamlined the process to where, hey, look, you can pick the kind of animal you want to harvest and where you want to go, and the guides, and it's all simplified for you on your website. I think it's awesome. I mean, what a great idea as a way to streamline both the guides and the hunting and everything all together in one-stop shop. I mean, I think it's awesome.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you guys taking a look.
No, big compliments. So tell me how you have grown this network.
Yeah, but I think one of the things that we were keen on from the beginning was making sure that there was enough options for people, and we also wanted to make sure that we weren't, we knew that having the system just be open to let anybody put up anything they wanted wasn't a great idea. So I have a team of people who are all hunters themselves, who go out and find, meet, and talk with guides to onboard them. This is not, it's not like eBay, right? You can't just go and put up what you want to sell on the website. You have to work with our team of onboarding specialists who, like I said, are all hunters themselves, to get interviewed and reviewed and then have our team create the listing. We feel like that's an important step to make sure that an actual human who knows the hunting space is talking to the guide and making sure both that the offering is legit, and also that the offering goes up with the kind of information that we would want as hunters. So an example would be, we're trying to expand the amount of pictures of accommodations and food, because that's an important part of a trip. It's not only about the hunt and the harvest. It's also the time you have with your friends and with the guides and outfitters while you're there. And so we want to make sure that that's accessible to people as well, not just grip and grins all over the place.
Yeah.
And then you're talking about Texas and kind of being in the middle of nowhere. I think another important aspect that we're trying to focus on as well is just making sure the difficulty level is clear, because you could have a hunt that is go get in a tree stand and sit there, which I'm not saying isn't difficult, but it's mentally challenging, not physically challenging typically. Or you could be climbing a mountain, Ben, like you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll climb 3 mountains before I sit still for 45 minutes. So tell me about your. So it sounds like it's kind of. When we talk about sporting clays, I always say, like, man, we just got to go guerrilla marketing, right? Like, if you have a good thing, you got to tell as many people as you can. So it sounds like there's a little bit of that for you guys. Do you find that your friends and network are referring outfitters to you that you then vet and add in, or are they approaching you, or you're just, sorry, I'll stop rambling. How
Yeah,
do
no,
you find them?
all the above. So, we have people in our network. I think you probably know this, Ben. When you go on guided hunts, you tend to know people who go on guided hunts, right? So we can hit that extended network and meet guides that way. We do have inbound coming in. Like I said, they get vetted first. They're not able to just put things up without going through our team. And then, the guys are out doing research. Ultimately, I really would like this to be a network. At the end of the day, the hunting and shooting community is large, but not that large. And the guided hunting community is a smaller piece of that. And so it winds up being a few degrees of separation at most once you really dig into it. And I think that's ultimately going to be an advantage for guides and hunters, to make sure that good people are both listing trips and taking trips.
My beloved co-host kind of got ahead of me a little bit, and I understand it. I mean, his passion for hunting is, well, let's put it to you this way. His Indian name is Shops with a Rifle. But one of the really feel-good parts of your story is you're pretty much raising your kids 180 degrees from the way you were raised. And, I read the wonderful article you wrote about camping with the kids and everything. But talk about that as a parent, raising your kids with firearms as well as conservation hunting. And, you were telling me that you and the kids go target shooting 2-3 times a week. I mean, I'm talking clay targets. Talk about that for a minute and what that's been like, and the bond that you've created with your kids, because it really is a cool story.
Yeah, thanks. I just did an article for Father's Day, which really brings it to mind. And looking back, I think that relationship to the outdoors was so critical. It wasn't the same, but I had that with my dad, and being able to take them out. We all know as parents we're busy with our jobs and with all the other things we have going on, and it's become sort of cliche to say that the kids have their faces in screens. And getting to a place that doesn't have Wi-Fi, where you can spend a weekend together, whether it's camping or hiking or hunting, is just the best antidote for that, right? There's no exchange for the time that you're going to spend together when you don't have those distractions around. And so that's been incredible. I think that's probably the number one benefit that I see. But then beyond that, right, having activities that you enjoy doing together is itself great. And that's been wonderful too. It's been great to have time with them, but also been great to see them pick up shooting and hunting as well. To watch my oldest son, who's the one who's probably most into it out of my 3 kids, to watch him grow up that way and mature trip by trip to, in the most recent trip he took with us, he's an equal at the fire pit with the guys at the end of the day. It's been special, right? I mean, you don't often get to watch that kind of transition from boy to man out in the woods that way, and it's been amazing.
Yeah, I mean, my little girl, don't get me wrong, she's very smart. She's a good kid. She really is. But she slipped up, as all kids do, and she was recently grounded from her electronics. And I told my wife the other day, I'm like, we need to ground her more often. She's like, what do you mean? I'm like, she's like out of her room and socializing and going outside. And it's, and you're right, there is too much screen time. And the way that you've brought, I guess you could call it your newfound lifestyle into raising your kids and introducing them to firearms. And we were joking on the phone, your kids are better clay target shooters than you are. And I think that's awesome. That's great. That's wonderful. It really is. I mean, that's, we push every week on the show to take someone who's shooting, take them to a tournament, and you're raising your kids that way. I mean, that's awesome.
It really is a wonderful way to spend a family afternoon. The thing about it's interesting, right, is you can, from all ages, I would take my oldest when he was big enough to shoot, he would shoot, but my daughter came with us and she had a good time operating the thrower and then getting a hot cocoa afterwards at the clubhouse. And, it became a full family activity, not just for the people who are actually shooting. And then at the same time, they got to meet my friends. I think it's important for kids to spend time with adults, not just be off on their own, but to kind of be part of that group and that camaraderie. And they really had that as a result. And then I'm lucky enough that through that, my daughter, came to me a few years ago and said, Dad, I want to go hunting with you. And I was able to take her on a hog hunt in Florida. So, it really just makes a relationship with your kids. It's hard to replace if you don't spend that kind of time together.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's amazing. Two thoughts that really hit home to me. A bunch of my friends now have kids that are getting into this, and like you said, there are some guys, there are some crusty old trap shooters that we really don't want them to pick up all their bad habits or anything. But but these young guys and gals on like some of the sporting teams, for instance, that get to interact with adults and they learn how to have a conversation. And for a fact, and I did this through the golf world. But that's how I got my first couple jobs. That's how I networked. I half of my friends were 17 and half of my friends were 62. And, that's, I think that's invaluable. And that's something that shooting, hunting, and the outdoor lifestyle will bring. That's so special. A Sporting Clay's dad, he knows who he is. Big shout out. He was talking about, man, it sure does, when you raise up a couple shooters, it sure does raise the bill on you, right? Now a weekend it just costs triple. But he made the joke that all those dollars were just, he was buying time spent with his kids, that it's not that you'll never get it back. It'll just flat out never happen again. And I don't care if it's me taking my father cool places or somebody taking their kid or grandkid cool places. My grandfather did it for me, and I plan on paying it back tenfold to anybody that'll listen to my nonsense. So that's super special.
Yeah, I mean, you can improve tomorrow, but you can't replace today.
Right? Yeah, that's exactly right.
And you're doing it with your kids, and I think that's don't get me wrong, Aziz, is flat out amazing is your story. Which, by the way, you probably get guest of the year on this podcast because it's an amazing story. But as amazing as it is, it I don't know, maybe it just tugs on the heartstrings more because I'm a father too. What you're doing with your kids is just it's amazing, and I'm so happy for you and for them, right?
Me as well. And Ben, I think you're exactly right. Like changing the mentality of thinking of the extra cost as buying ammunition or rounds at the course to time with your loved ones. I think I just read something that's like 80 or 90% of the time you spend with your kids is gone by the time they're out of high school. And like you're saying, you don't get that time back. So that's money very well spent in my book.
Yeah, for sure. Well, listen, Aziz, I know your website, like you said, can be difficult, but I'm going to put a link right down in the show description. I highly encourage everyone to check it out. Again, it's finder.com, but it's spelled totally different, We are going to put that link down in the show description, real easy for everybody to get to. You need to check this out because it doesn't matter if you're into big game hunting or waterfowl or whatever. He's got a hunt there for you. And he's really has simplified the process. I'm impressed with your website. It's awesome. And I really encourage people to read some of the articles and stuff that Aziz has written because that'll tug on some heartstrings for sure. Aziz, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. It really has. And I know you talked about, taking your daughter down to Florida to go hog hunting. Man, next time you guys are down here, you have to look me up. We're going to go bust some clay targets. Who knows? Maybe I'll join you on a hog hunt or something. That sounds like fun.
That sounds great. I'll trade you a hog hunt for sporting clays lessons.
Well, I don't know about lessons. I can show you what not to do. but absolutely. No, that sounds like a fun weekend to me. Let's do it. Let's plan on it. I love it.
Sounds great. Really appreciate the time, guys.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you for doing the work, being the change that you want to see. Hunting in the outdoors, sport shooting, sporting clays shooting. Yeah, nobody knows about it unless we tell them because we're just not that big and everybody wants growth in the sport. So let's grow it from every direction. So thank you, Aziz. Really, really genuinely appreciated.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, thank you.
The Dead Pair.
Man, I figured you for the perfect co-host for this episode, and I think you understand why.
Thank you, Jason. It was really interesting to hear kind of how he was putting all that together. My big game hunting, I went to a show one time and I judged a book by its cover and I got really lucky and met a family and had a great hunt. And everything I've done since then has been a direct referral from kind of that center of the spider web. And so, but not everybody can get that lucky. And if you're looking to expand your outdoors experience and network, this is a pretty valuable resource. At least you got a really solid place to start, and that it's been vetted by somebody that probably thinks and talks like you do. So that's pretty stinking cool.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, what was amazing to me though, I mean, if you really stop and think about, like, if you summarize this show real quick, you're talking about a guy, this is his definition, not mine, that was raised by liberal hippie parents as a Muslim, anti-gun, anti-meat, vegan, and now this man is a huge firearm advocate, a big hunter, has a website with guide services, right? Takes his kids out shooting sporting clays and trap and skeet, and really enjoys the outdoors and shooting recreation. I mean, what a swan song story, I mean, he's guest of the year.
Yes, it was pretty slick. Yeah, and it's not that any of those things are terribly are terribly negative, but talk about broadening your horizons and going places and doing things. And then to take time away from his legal practice to put a resource like this together, like pretty valuable. And, whether that's looking up bird hunts in either the east or the west of the lower 48 or onto the big game. Yeah, he talked about a lot of interesting things. He also said something offline about brokering these hunts and putting people together. Like, you book a hunt with somebody and you're able to pay through his website and they waive like credit card fees because he just feels like it's one less barrier to entry. Yeah. I mean, does sporting clays not have a million barriers to entry? That's really cool. It's really cool that somebody's trying to knock down walls and make it easier for the consumer to access what they want, which is to have a great time in the outdoors.
Yep. No, I agree 100%. And, this falls right in line. The message every week is take someone who's shooting, take them to a tournament. What about someone like Aziz? I mean, we all have friends that are hunters that don't shoot sport. Take them to a sporting clays range. If they shoot recreational every once in a while, if they ever shot a tournament, no, take them one time. Maybe they'll enjoy it. Maybe it'll be another or new hobby for them. But it's funny too, Ben, because, and I'm sure you've ran across this, Sean Alley and I had a friend that was a very avid bird hunter, very avid. Like, he would go up in the UP in Michigan every year and, quail hunt and pheasant hunt, you name it. We got him hooked into sporting clays, and that year when he went up to his hunt, he said his hits went way up. Like he benefited from sporting clays when he was going hunting, and now he avidly shoots both. That's kind of like what falls in line with our message every week, right? I mean, you'd be surprised who would get involved with this.
I'm, an extremely medium sporting clay shooter, but when you're in the woods and you got to make a snapshot, golly, natural point of aim. Sure enough, if you can point, it sure does help you get on target quicker. So believe it or not, shoot sporting clays. It'll improve your driven boar hunting in Germany, or that's my experience.
Driven boar hunting in Germany.
Yeah, it's like rabbits, except they're significantly larger and have teeth and kind of remind you of some girls I used to date. So what are you going to do?
No, he did not just say that. Okay.
I didn't make any more trap shooter jokes. I mean, come on, bud.
Right, exactly. Real quick, Ben, what's next on the bucket list for you? Are you going to the Shooters Championship in Georgia?
No, I'm not. Gosh, how many times have we said there are 10,000 awesome tournaments and about 30 good weeks in the year?
Yes.
I know this comes out in a couple weeks. We probably will have already come and gone from New Jersey. Really looking forward to the Texas FTASC at Dallas Gun Club, like a Grand Prix style 200 bird event put on by Dallas Gun Club. So I got to give a big, as a proud member there, I got to give a big shout out there. And then Jim and Jared Greenwood, dear friends of mine, they have a little invitational shoot in Kansas. And when they originally got it kicked off, you kind of had to be friends and family only to be there. Well, now if you're there, having a Greenwood stock is, Jared, don't shoot me for this, but it's kind of like a separate concurrent. So if you do well and you shoot a Greenwood, there's a little side event prize for you, but that tournament's open to a whole bunch of people and it's at Flint Oak. And so, yeah, that's kind of where my May and June go, aside from working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Yeah.
What about Southeast Regional? You going to be in Florida for that?
I'll be at the Southeast. It's interesting. Here we are talking about hunting. I think the only major I will miss this year is the U.S. Open, of all things. Kind of breaks my heart, but I will be living in a tent eating freeze-dried lasagna in Canada. So, heck yeah.
Okay. All right. Cool. Well, listen, when next time we get you back on, I'm anxious to hear how that hunt went. And I look forward to seeing you down at Okeechobee. What is that, first week of June, I believe it is,
yes.
The Southeast Regional.
Yep.
So we'll definitely have some barley pops and catch up on your hunting. But thank you, Ben, for joining us. What's that?
I said canned sandwiches.
Canned sandwiches. Oh, boy. I don't know about that one. But no, sincerely, Ben, thank you for joining us tonight. I really appreciate it. Thank you to our guest, Aziz Hain. And everyone, we cannot wait to catch y'all back here next week on the Dead Pair Podcast.
We'll see you next time on the Dead Pair Podcast.
The Dead Pair Podcast is brought to you by Kolar Arms, the mark of performance, and is fueled by Fiocchi USA. The Dead Pair theme song was written, arranged, and produced by Toby Tomplay. Special thanks to the following sponsors: Atlas Traps, Ranger Performance Eyewear, Rhino Chokes, Long Range LLC, Gun and Trophy Insurance, Taconic Distillery, Score Chaser, and Clay Range Design Works.